I'm Eric Shepard, and we are back with another episode of Regarding Music. I'm here with Ben Nguyen, who's a music educator and business coach. Ben's been a guest on Regarding Music before. We had a great chat a few months ago, and we're going to have another great discussion about music education and business here today. Ben, how are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me back on, Eric.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our second discussion. Since the last time we spoke, what has been something you have learned?
Yeah, I was telling you earlier about NAM, and I went to the NAM show. I think it was like last week or a couple weeks ago, but I went with my dad, and it was a great experience. I went to a lot of panels. One of them I was telling you about, like turning your recording studio into like a podcast studio, which I think was super relevant for me. I went to like some panels around growing your YouTube channel, and then my dad also runs like the choir at our church, and I play piano every Sunday. So he wanted to go, yeah. So he wanted to go to like it was like this long master class around like recording in for like church recording people, like how to be able to navigate through the infrastructure, like how to record, how to make sure the mix is good for live, but then also the live stream as well. So it was really interesting. But overall, I think what I learned was like the power of community at the actual convention, and the reason why it's been so successful so long is definitely that community. It's something I teach my clients as well, and the importance of having this community, like people who want to belong together. Because I think it was super cool that like I could go up to anybody there, or go up to anybody and like do like a vendor or somebody attending, and just be able to like nerd out about music. It feels like you're in a safe environment, and it's like I don't know any of these people, but I know they are just like me. And that's something that I really wanted to take away for myself and to teach my clients, but then also for my own self as like a DJ and as a producer too. And when I'm doing my own events, I think the main value of my events and the real reason I go there is like the community I'm trying to build, and seeing people who you saw at the last event, catching up with them, like us here, like building this community with through your podcast. Like I think that's like the most important thing about music.
Yeah, that networking piece, like both on the satisfaction bit, but also like the professional advantage of seeing people and cooking up projects is something that is palpable. I guess my first main question for you is, you work with a fair number of music educators who are trying to develop a business, right? Private music teachers. What would you say is the number one thing that you've seen from working with your clients that music teachers, people trying to start studios, get wrong when they come to you, or when you first see those businesses?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like for me, like I'm still learning. Like I started teaching piano when I was 18, and I just turned 26. So I've identified myself as a music educator for a while, but I get the fortunate um, opportunity that like pretty much all of the teachers, all of my clients are usually older than me. So that means they have way more playing experience. They're way better teachers, music teachers than me. So it's awesome being able to learn from them. But I feel like the first thing that I went through, something that's kind of relevant to what I'm teaching my clients now, is really teaching the real reason why we have music in our life in the first place, and the real reason why students take lessons in the first place as well. And when I was first starting, when I was creating content for my piano studio as well, I'd really focus my message on like getting better at the piano, playing scales faster or playing harder songs or something like that. And it wasn't until now when I really dove into my own craft as a music producer and making my own music that I realized that like music is it's so much more than that. And being able to make that distinction and that connection in our content, where it's not just about being able to play music better, but it's about how it's about living this life through the lens of music and how that has transformed our lives as well. Being like, if more music teachers focused on that in their content and in their marketing, like we would have, way more musicians.
Right. Right. So shifting the story from being the story, the messaging that, you're putting across in marketing, saying, hey, rather than, we're going to get you to be better at playing fast scales and learning hard pieces, we're going to introduce you, or whoever you're marketing to, to the world of music. And yeah, I think you're right. It's a much more compelling story.
Yeah, it's like the social skills that students can take to their schools. It's like the memories that they can create when like I'm just thinking like of a parent brings a kid home and then they start showing off like what they're learning to their brothers or to their grandma or something like that. Like those are like the memories that I feel like parents really cherish. And um, even though we're not necessarily teaching that in the lesson room, that is the value that music does bring into our lives. Like the memories that I feel like in my life, I live for like the memories, the experiences in my life. And I kind of treat my social media the same way, where it's like a documentation. It's like all these memories that I can look back on as well. And um, that is only possible through music and being able to, like, us as teachers, we're kind of like the translators. So we are able to make that connection between, hey, if this is the family life that you want, if this is the life that you want, you can have that through music. So that's what we should be teaching. And when I made that shift as a piano teacher, I remember there's this one post I put in my neighborhood group, and I got like 50 comments from it, and my first like 10 students really came from just that one post. And in that post, I talk about all of that, like if you want your kid to be able to have memories that they can share for their lifetime, have the social skills to be able to connect with other people, especially in this time of uncertainty, then I can help with that.
Amazing. And it's really interesting because I could see that being good and powerful marketing, as a marketing message, but also relevant to the actual teaching itself. And I'm interested in your insights here because, I've had a number of different music teachers throughout my career. I'm not really a teacher myself, as a conductor and podcaster. Like, I hope that people are learning something from the discussions we have or from rehearsals that I've done. But that's a different thing than being like, I'm gonna teach a 12-year-old how to do music and get them both to improve as a musician and to like get involved and get interested and be excited about music. I've had a number of different music teachers throughout my life who, some of whom, major mentors for me, both when it comes to music and otherwise, like just in my life, period. And then I've had teachers who have just made me not passionate or excited about it, right? And I think that, good music teachers can dramatically impact and change the way that a musician develops and the outlook that one can have. And then it's the same case for really, not great music teachers. Like it's not like, okay, bad music teachers take you to a neutral place. It's like, bad music teachers make you just want to quit and never do it again. And I've experienced both of those. And I feel like a lot of musicians have experienced both of those. So what I'm interested in is, from the work you've done both as a teacher and working with private teachers to, build businesses, what insights do you have on like what makes someone a good music teacher?
For me, the mentors that really stick out to me are the ones who are more of like leaders as well, and visionaries. I feel like what makes a great teacher is that we expand the possibilities of what students can see and experience in music. It's like when they see you play or sing, it's magic to them. You're creating stuff like out of thin air, and being able to show students like what is possible other than just playing cool songs, but like the life that you have. the fact that you get to have a career with your passion is way farther along than what most people have in life. And just being able to be grateful for that, and being able to share that gratitude with students and showing them like, this is what your life could be as well. Even if it's not music, but like having a life and a career with your passion, like that's something that we should be teaching our students. And also like the transition from going from private lessons to like a group model or like an online course, it's often tough for a lot of teachers, especially if they haven't had that experience in their life before by another teacher. But what's more important than like the pedagogy that goes along with it? Yes, you have to be good at actually teaching, but when it comes time to then going from like a one-on-one to then a group setting, naturally we start to let go of control over our students' results, right? You have to tend to more students at once. You can't just like focus your energy on one student. So what becomes more important now is the leadership aspect, and how well can you lead, not just in a one-to-one setting, but lead in a one-to-many setting. Mm-hmm. And being able to still provide great results to students and help them stay motivated throughout the process. It takes a lot of leadership to do that in an online setting, right? You got to transfer that energy of your leadership through a pre-recorded video. And that's not easy.
That's one piece of this I can definitely relate to, going from really? Being like, well, not in terms of teaching music, but in terms of podcasting, right?
Yeah.
Being like, okay, I would normally have lots of energy talking about this concept if I were explaining it to a friend, explaining it to another musician, presenting it in front of a class, like in a rehearsal. But then like stepping in front of a camera and pressing record and being like, okay, I need to articulate this concept that might be difficult to understand, right? For someone who doesn't know about it. If it's something that I know a lot about, it's really easy to, assume that to explain something in a way that assumes that other people know what you're saying. And then to come at that in a way that's going to be interesting, exciting, and engaging is actually like a really difficult thing to do. That, put it this way, whenever I've, made videos talking about my compositions or podcasts where it's just me and, where you don't have a guest to kind of like bounce things off of, mm-hmm. I would be an absolute liar to say that, you don't press like, record, stop, start over again like 15 or 20 times before you start cooking. Like, so I could see that being, such a barrier to shifting to doing on an online model, because, being able to explain concisely, potentially complicated ideas but in a way that are going to get other people and potentially young people, like kids, interested and excited about music, I think is actually much more difficult than people might think. And I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah. That's what I did my degree for. Music ed. I remember my favorite semester for our practicum class, like where we actually like learn pedagogy, was like elementary school band, or like elementary school music, like general music. And it was so fun because one, like the lesson plans are just fun. You just make games out of everything. But also too, it's like we have experienced our entire life like working towards our musicianship level to now we gotta like kind of rewind that and step into a place that some of us have never been before. Like for me, I don't know, music is just like another language, or it's like a second language to me. Where it's like, if someone asked me, how'd you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I just know how to do it.
I just showed up and I did two things.
Yeah. So being able to actually like step out of my shoes and be able to break it down into a way where somebody without the context of my life, like without all those years of private lessons or music education, can be able to understand it too. It is a difficult thing. And I feel like the best teachers are not just able to break it down easily, but break it down in so many different ways as well. Because with teaching so many students, I've learned that like every student learns a different way, and every student has their own learning style. So matching that to your pedagogy, the way that I teach has to be a little bit different for each person. The setting that they're in. Some students really thrive in private lessons, but some students don't thrive in private lessons. They actually thrive in a group setting as well. Really understanding that can help you not only like help your students get better results, but know like where each student should be in the part of your business. Because if all we're doing is scaling up like the one-on-one part of our business, you're probably putting some students in there that aren't fit for a one-on-one setting. Like they would like thrive in a group setting, and that's why you should have like a group model in your business as well. So it kind of goes on those two aspects there.
Right. And I could see that being marketed differently for different groups, right? Because I mean, if you're going to do like group music lessons and we're targeting that towards adults, right? We're targeting that towards, 20, 30, 40 somethings who are interested in picking up a new hobby. Like that is a different discussion and a different like vibe and culture. Like I think that, a different vibe and culture than you would be trying to do if you're, okay, I'm going to do a group music lesson for kids. And I'm interested in your thoughts on like, I could see like for me, I was always good at doing, one-on-one. Like most of my education was, one-on-one, mainly because like my grandfather was a music prof. So I had really early access to really good, one-on-one education, which, kind of put me ahead. And it's one of those, I always think about music kind of like, have you read, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
I haven't.
It's a good read, and like his whole theory in that is like if you start off, if someone starts off being good early, like they'll get more opportunities and attention from people along the way. And one of the examples that that he gave was hockey players who are born in January, February, March are the people who go to the NHL because, by the time the season starts, like the 6-year-old who was born in January is going to have a big advantage on, the 6-year-old who was born in August. And that will snowball in such a way that they'll get more attention from coaches when they're 7, 8, and 12 and end up being palpably better by the time they're in their teens. And I think that is such a relevant thing with music that, if you've got access to good teachers really early on in your career, and you get more excited about it, you're probably going to practice more, right? You're probably going to learn more from teachers who are good, and you're going to get more excited about it, such that, by the time you get into high school and then into university, you could be really, really, really far ahead of other people who didn't have access to that. So, I guess where I'm going with this is, what are your thoughts on dealing with varying levels of skill and background in a group setting? Because I feel like even for teaching, kids, you could have widely varying levels of skill and commitment based on previous experience. Like if you were teaching a class of 12-year-olds, you've got someone who's completely new, but you've also got someone who's been playing since they were 5. That could be different. And I'm curious. I'm interested. There's a bit of a spiel for me. What are your thoughts?
It's kind of like, it definitely depends on like how I would teach. Like if I would, like, there's so many different ways that teachers teach group lessons that it really does depend. I feel like the biggest fear that a lot of teachers have is if they have a student that's too experienced, they might be like, man, the student's just going to be like miles ahead and bored. But also if a student is super inexperienced, they're going to be like, that student is just going to be like lagging behind and they're not going to enjoy their experience. I feel like when we do group lessons, an important thing to remember is to trust our students and to trust in their ability to be able to grow in any setting. And I think it's a great idea to have like all of your, like some sort of event or something like that, some sort of gathering to have your entire studio community come together with all the experienced people, because the inexperienced people, they get a lot of inspiration from like, wow, like I could look like that. Like, for example, I had my birthday here at my house and we were doing like DJ sets and drinking mimosas. It was like music and mimosas. That was like the event.
Nice.
So I had like my friends here. I had a few other DJs. One of my friends is like very new to DJing, very new to like producing music as well. And he was here, and I had one of my other friends, and she was like more experienced. But him being able to see her, he texted me afterwards. He was like, Ben, I got to get my stuff together. Like I was looking at everybody else, and this set the new standard for myself. Like I have so much to learn. And that's like the experience that the younger students or more inexperienced students can have when they are exposed to the older students. But also for the older and more experienced students, being able to have opportunities to lead, opportunities to teach students, that's the best way to be able to learn. Like I feel like I've always become a better student and become a better musician by teaching music.
Right.
So that's how I would kind of go about like that group aspect. I see the good in being able to put everybody together, but I definitely understand the pedagogical aspect. Like definitely depending on how you teach is how you should organize your student base.
So I could see starting a music studio as being a goal of, many young musicians, different with different backgrounds, different interests. I know so many people who I went to university with who were like, yeah, I want to be a private teacher and start my own studio. What do you think are the first, the best kind of first steps for someone who might be, an undergrad or a master's student who is thinking about going that path?
Yeah. I feel like friends, people, it's going to be like the very first place. When I was first starting piano, my first students came from other parents in my church.
Right.
And it was almost like they just kind of came up to me. They heard that I was like being stepping into like my music education degree. So they asked if I taught piano, and I took on that opportunity because I wanted to learn how to teach while I was in my degree. So being able to approach people that I already knew is the easiest step, because you don't have to build any trust, and they're willing to take that chance with you. They're willing to be more like, easygoing with you as well. But like that was like back when I was 18. A more recent example actually is like, I'm starting to get this inkling, this feeling again to get back into music education. Cause I haven't, like, most of my time is being spent taught like, teaching social media to music teachers and stuff like that. So I don't get that chance. I don't get that chance to actually like teach music again, but going through my experience of taking music production lessons again from a coach, and now like being able to teach DJing to my friends. Like I first started off with my friends, and I've taught like 3 of them how to DJ, and they've all been able to play like their own gigs, like house parties or something like that. But they've all been got to the point where they're self-sufficient, that I feel like I could charge for DJ lessons at this point. But the fear that goes in my head, the fear that may go on with a lot of like new teachers, is like, man, but I'm not like the best at it yet.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, how much can I really teach if I am, if I'm not like that good yet? And the good news is that you don't have to be the best. I think we hear that all the time. You just have to be able to help somebody who's, a few steps behind you.
Yeah. Create some sort of value.
Yeah. But also I think like reaching out to friends and being able to teach them is like the easiest and best way to start, because think about it in your friend's perspective. If they were to pay for lessons from someone, they would want to use that money for their friends. They would want to pay you. It's going to be so much fun, because whenever I was teaching my friends how to DJ, it's just hanging out. It's just like hanging out with friends, and also it gets that experience, and it really gets that social proof for for yourself as well. So, yeah, I would always say like start off with the people that you want to work with.
I'm really interested that you went, a sort of analog route, because I feel like for, not just in music teaching, but in all sort of aspects of music business, this is a conversation I've had with a number of people on the pod and offline, that like it can feel enticing to be like, I need to go out and build a massive Instagram following to run my business. But the fact of the matter is, I've met people in real life and through the podcast who, are, have 1,000 followers, but are running great music businesses, right? Both from leveraging in-person things and like, just finding the right people and with the right message and getting someone as a client is like not the same thing as being like, how do I blow up? Like it can be like they can be part of the same formula. But if there's anything I've learned from talking to people on this pod about music business and social media stuff, is that like getting followers and getting views is not necessarily the same thing as getting clients. And if you're trying to be a business, like getting clients is what it's about.
Yeah, it's so different.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that is what I feel like every teacher learns that lesson through experiencing it, right? Like something blows up, something goes viral, and then they realize that like it's not about the views, it's about actually getting the students,
right?
And my best tip for that is like the way that I teach my teachers on how to get their dream students is through the type of content that they make and what they say in the content. That is like the most important part, not the platform that you market on, not the funnel or the channel or even the type of content, whether you're making reels or whether you're doing a carousel. It's really about what you put into the content. And there's two things. It's like the words and the energy that you put into it. It's kind of like, it's exactly like music, right? It's like the technique, the way that you play the music, but then also the expression, the manifestation of like your energy through the music. Mm-hmm. Same thing with our copywriting as well. And what's most important is that we speak to people's values rather than giving them information. We speak to their values. We speak to students who have that, that feeling. I don't know about you, like that, when you go back to younger Eric, the Eric before all this music education knowledge, that inkling that you had that I want to do this for the rest of my life. Like we want to speak to those students. Right. We want to speak to students who have that spark, who have that passion. And we don't do that. You're not going to attract them through like, this is how you play this song really easily.
Yeah.
But you attract them through like, this is who you need to be. This is who you need to become in order to have that life that you want through the values. The reason why I was able to have a roster full of like students, but also parents who were never problem parents. They were always parents that really aligned with me, who always supported me, is because I made sure that in my marketing, I speak to parents who care about music education, who are just as invested in that for their kids as well. And because I spoke to that, I attracted parents who were super easy to work with and who are really fun. So that's like, that's what I wanted to share about that.
Yeah. I think you touched on something really interesting, that like reflecting on my early musicianship, I thought about that. I think could be a really powerful thing for both teachers and, musicians, period. Right. Like, so I started doing music when I was, I think 9. And do you want to know what got me interested in music from the get-go? It was playing Guitar Hero 3 on my Nintendo Wii. which that I am a loud I
With the
I
whole,
am
like,
but
rig
I
and
am a
stuff?
lousy guitar player. I guess I could say that I play guitar, but like I'm really, that is not what I do. I am a choral musician now, right? Like completely
Yeah.
different focus. Kind of one thing led to another over the last like 15 years. But I got interested in that, and as soon as I got interested in Guitar Hero, like my parents put me in guitar lessons, which I like, never practiced for. Right. But what I remember though was like probably the first year or two of me learning guitar, doing music, I didn't take very seriously, but I ended up making like classic, grade 8 band sort of thing, where you play like the spring carnival, and like you think I felt really cool,
I remember,
right?
yeah.
But what you talked about being a musician who other young musicians want to be like, basically as soon as I got interested and started taking my guitar lessons more seriously when I was 10 or 11, my mom was like, you're gonna do music theory lessons with your grandfather, right? And
Nice.
he was a music prof, and my dad played keyboards in the 1980s in a band, and I remember I was like, I want to be like them, when
Nice.
I was just a kid, kind of thing, which is actually a fairly powerful thing if you can get your students to be like, I want, like, they don't necessarily need to say it or articulate it, but to feel like, I want to be like that person. And
Yeah.
I think it's a really powerful thing to be able to achieve, not just as a student or a teacher, sorry, but as a musician, right? Like if you're a conductor and, you have choristers who are like, I want to work with and be like that guy. Like you are winning if you're that man.
Yeah. It's cool because, like, I feel like as teachers, we often forget that our music can do the heavy lifting in our marketing as well.
Yeah.
And there's definitely going to be people who see your choral conducting performances, who see your compositions, and automatically just be like, I want to work with Eric.
I
How do I
hope
be
so.
like Eric? Yeah.
Don't speak too
just like,
soon.
right? Like even
I try.
if you extended that, if you opened that door for people, people would walk through, and you're not even like marketing yourself as a teacher. And that's the beautiful part about music. And it's like we could just show our work, and people will want to work with us just based on how we sound, based on the creations we create. So yeah, I feel like that's an underrated thing that I feel like a lot of teachers miss because we forget to identify ourselves as performers or as musicians as well.
I think you touched on something else that's interesting there, is that so much of the discussion around music careers traditionally, and I think it's changing because of things like podcasting, growing online businesses, social media. I think the conversation is shifting, but I remember when I wanted to go back to music school from working in business, like all my business, like people I worked with, business former coworkers, people I'd went to business school with, were like, Eric, I love this for you, like go follow your passion, that can never be wrong. And like all of the musicians I knew, like former teachers of mine and stuff, were like, what are you doing? It's so much of the discussion is around like basically you need to become either like a music teacher, and I mean like a high school music teacher, not in the way that we're talking about it, or a prof, right? For so long, those were kind of like the two things that if you were going the kind of classical route were the stable career options. But the fact of the matter is there are so many different ways for musicians to create value for people, right? For customers, for audiences, for students. Like there are a lot of different ways that you could say, all right, I've got skills, I've got talent, like, or not in a like condescending look at me way, but it's like, no, like I have value to share and to create, and what's a good way to do that? And I think that getting back to the sort of imposter syndrome piece that like every musician, I'm sure I've felt, sounds like you felt, every musician, it is just part of like the human condition in this business, is that like recognizing that it's like, okay, I've got skills or experience that someone might be interested in, and putting it out into the market and like iterating, learning what works, and kind of adjusting and adapting. That's something that is new. That like I don't know. I remember like while I was doing my undergrad, like that was not a part of the conversation, in like the 20 teens.
Did you have like pressures to be a certain career? Like
no, all of I basically I didn't really, I wouldn't say that I had pressure either way. Like I've had 3 or 4 different careers, and I'm only 26 as well, right? So my bigger problem isn't feeling pressures. It's just like being interested in everything and getting bored easily.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Which isn't really a problem.
When you were talking about that, like it definitely resonated with me as well, because like luckily, I've always been surrounded by like a supportive network, and growing up, like this area of San Diego is very supportive of the arts. So my high school had a really big arts program. Music. We had one of the largest music programs in San Diego, and going into SDSU and becoming a music major, my parents were very supportive of that too. But again, it's kind of like for teachers, we only teach what we usually fall back for our teaching on our own experience. And for me, when choosing a career, like the only thing I've ever experienced in my life, music wise as a career, is like private teacher from taking private lessons. And then also like band directing from being in marching band. So when it came time to like really choose what I wanted to do for my career, thinking about grad school and everything, I went through a lot of like different decisions, because at the time while I was teaching, I was already teaching piano. So I was experiencing what it would feel like as a private teacher. I don't remember. I might've told you on the last time we were hanging out, but like I had a phase where I wanted to be a conductor, like an orchestral, like a university conductor. Yeah, maestro. I really enjoyed conducting class. Like that was so fun. I enjoyed the actual like expressing yourself and being able to make the ensemble change their expression from your hands, but also like the score study aspect of it. Like I was just nerding out with that. But then I took the elementary school pedagogy class, and then I was like, I want to be an elementary school music teacher. Like that was so fun for me. So my career path kind of shifted there, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And while COVID happened, I had a fellowship during my senior year, my fourth year of my degree. I was doing a fellowship, so I was shadowing for elementary school band during COVID. So we were on Zoom, like trying to teach recorder on Zoom.
That must have been so difficult.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience that no other teacher would ever have, hopefully in our lifetime. But that was like a career altering experience, because after that, I was like, I don't know if I could do this teaching credential anymore. And so I decided not to do my 5th year and decided to keep teaching piano lessons. And because of that, that's like why I'm here right now, because of all of those different decisions. But like that was a big decision that really brought me to here where I am. So I did have a little bit of pressure of like, you gotta be a public school music teacher. And then also too, like my mom is she's a public school math teacher as well. So I think a big thing was like, do I want to step into that type of lifestyle? And I'm like, I didn't want to. And then now that's why in my business, I teach the lifestyle music school model now, and being able to create a music school that fits your lifestyle, like, because it really comes from my story then. But yeah, those pressures, I really felt it.
I think it's an interesting discussion to have, because it's funny, like for me, like I wouldn't say that I have felt very much pressure in my musical career. And it's like, the question that I often think about is, did I not have pressure, or did you just develop the skills that make it easy to deal with pressure,
Uh-huh.
which I think are kind of two different things, right? And I mean, I have a bias. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't remember if we talked about it before on our last chat, but I mean, my background as well. Like, I went to business school, which was fairly intense, and I used to be in the Canadian Navy, which was fairly, you know, you learn
Okay.
you learn how to deal with stress. Like, that was, if there was anything that I took away from, you know, my time with the Navy Reserve, like in here, it was that. It was like learning how to be a leader, which, like, in business, I found in business school, and so often people are like, just be a leader. Like, you need to be that. But we, like, you know, don't actually talk about like what it means to, like, be accountable for when you,
Yeah, what's that mean?
when you're the problem, and you need to say, okay,
Yeah.
here, you know, this has been a stressful situation, a terrible situation, and I, whether or not I'm right or wrong, I need to be accountable for what's going on, and someone has to say and do something. Like, that is not something that, like, we really learn, like, anywhere out, at least in my experience, from what I've seen, like, outside of the military, which actually has a lot of transferability into things like conducting, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Because
really?
if
Like,
you're
how
if
do you
you're a
see it?
conductor, you're a leader, right? And if you're a music teacher,
Yeah.
you're a leader as well, right? You're responsible
Hmm.
for other people and for the experience that they have, right? You know, like, you're
Yeah.
responsible for if you're a music teacher, you actually have a ton of responsibility. You're responsible for, you know, someone's interest or not in music, which is really important. And it's the same thing with conductors. Like, you know, I'm, like, deeply passionate about choir. I love choir, but, like, you know, I've been in tons of rehearsals where I've been with a conductor who, like, wasn't going with anywhere. And, like, being in a rehearsal that isn't going anywhere in choir is, like, one of the worst things. Right?
Yeah.
It's one of the worst things. And I'm out here being like, you know, I would rather not conduct something than people have a bad experience with me.
Yeah.
Right?
As a
Or have it be, like,
percussionist,
not
when
awesome. Like,
yeah, as a percussionist, when, like, I've had so many experiences where I'm in, like, an hour, 2 hour rehearsal, and I play maybe, like, one bar.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, why am I here?
But I think that it's such
'Cause
an
it's not being led
important
right.
consideration for conductors, music teachers, basically anyone who's in a leadership position in music, that, like, you're not just responsible for the output. Because I feel like so often the discussion, at least in choir, I you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I could see it being the case that, you know, there could be a lot of music teachers who are, or, like, really, really results oriented. I absolutely used to be that way when I first started conducting, and part of that was because I wasn't secure. Like, I was, you know, when I was insecure about my conducting abilities, like, of course I was going to be a bit more results oriented, and you know, not that you shouldn't be results oriented, but
Yeah.
you need
It's
to
like
balance that with
attached.
people's experiences, because the fact of the matter is, if you're a conductor or a teacher, you are responsible for whether people have fun doing music or not, and that's actually
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah. That's so important. I'm glad you mentioned that too. Can I add something to
Yeah,
that
no,
too?
absolutely.
Kind of like, yeah, because we were talking about leadership earlier. I feel like going back to, like, leadership, like, you are the person that holds the vision, right? You're there to
Yeah.
expand people's vision on what's possible for them. But, like, I learned how important this was in music production and being able to produce music too, because there's like, in the music industry, there's this big stigma of, like, ghost producers, right? Like people are flaming Drake for having ghost producers, like,
Right.
work on his beats and work on his lyrics and stuff like that. Other people flame other DJs because there's some DJs that aren't as good as a music producer, or aren't as good, like, musically.
Right.
So they hire ghost producers to make the songs for them. And people get a lot of flack for that because, and I used to be the same way too, of like, man, these people are just, like, taking other people's songs and make it their own. But at the core of it, you know, at the core of it, it's really collaboration. It's really vision that drives the project, because
Right.
the people who put their names on the song are the actual producers. Like, if we were to think about, like, what the leader, their role is to actually, like, see the vision of the project, see the vision of the song, and move it along so it is able to come into fruition. And if I were to work with other people and I never touched the computer or I never touched the instrument, like, I would still be the producer because I hold the vision, I hold the direction of where the song needs to go. that I feel like that's the true core, the essence of like leadership, and why like new teachers can be just as great leaders as experienced teachers
Yeah.
as well, is because it has nothing to do with your pedagogy, it has nothing to do with your musical skills that you have, but it has everything to do with like your vision, and how clear and compelling, how clear do you see it for yourself, and how can you be able to communicate that vision to somebody else just as clearly as well. Like that's like what I see as a big part of leadership, and what helps stand people like teachers and conductors and musicians like stand out from each other.
Ben, this has been an amazing discussion. Before we end off here, what thoughts, pieces of advice, words of wisdoms, key takeaways? I'm giving you the last word here. What do you want to leave the listeners of Regarding Music with?
Oh man, I would feel like continuing to make time to find that love for music, to continue to like refresh yourself is so important. It's something I teach my teachers. It's something that I feel like musicians, we get busy with life, and we forget that like music is our outlet. Like it truly is like our outlet. We teach that to our students. We teach that in our marketing. Like, oh, music is this like outlet for your life, but we need to remember to like practice it. So that's something that I am trying to have more intention and focus with this year, is to make time for my musical projects, and time to like talk about music. So yeah, I appreciate you for bringing me on and having this as my outlet just to like talk about music.
Amazing. Ben, thank you so much for coming on Regarding Music. It's been a pleasure to have you on for this discussion.
Appreciate you.